right, I think we are good to go. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Miles Sims, I'm client partner with Demand Blue, and today we're going to talk a little bit about and go through a fun, hopefully fun demo, um, and look behind the curtain a little bit as well of Agentforce and kind of how we're looking at Agentforce when it comes to the manufacturing perspective. What are some of the tools and some of the things that we're seeing as we're working with our clients that are leveraging AI and leveraging what Salesforce has built, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of our capabilities, but really just want to focus on Agentforce and hopefully give you some ideas of how you might be able to deploy an agent or troubleshoot or configure. So a little bit about our company very quickly before we jump into the demo. So, this is our NASCAR slide of all the great stuff that we've done. We've been a Salesforce partner for quite a while, over 10 years, and have, worked across a lot of different Salesforce clouds. Super excited and engaged in Agentforce and Manufacturing Cloud and Data Cloud. And also our MuleSoft practice as integration and data are kind of the foundational components to a lot of things we're doing with AI. So, happy to have additional conversations down the road, but just to give you a little overview of who we are and what we do. And then, going from there for anyone that isn't as familiar, or it's always good to get a refresher as we look at what our agent is going to be doing. Salesforce has done a great job of kind of building out the scaffolding of what an agent is, right? How do we think about an agent? I know they also have some great content about how an agent is different than a bot. And this is really about, I think digital labor is the term they use, but this is really about giving the agent some jobs to do, some ways that can really help us on our individual tasks, as well as being able to provide some of those guardrails. So, here we've got our role, right? Just like you would think of a task to do. What is the role? What is the information, the knowledge needed to complete that job or to do that role? What are those actions, those tasks within the overall role? What can't our agent do? We want to make sure we define that. And then, where does this happen? Does it happen within the internal work streams? Is it client facing? Like, where is this agent, being put to work? And so, those are the things we're looking at when we define the agent. And then as we look at what information, what data the agent has access to, and of course, that's where we come to our Salesforce instance and beyond, as to what the agent can provide us and engage with. For our demo today, we're going to look at one use case of a shop floor, mentor, shop floor, knowledge base, however you want to phrase it. But essentially, we've got a newly trained technician doing a simple ball bearing replacement on a piece of equipment on the shop floor, and really just working through some of the use cases and different example ways that you might engage with an agent, to get some of that information where normally you may have to either set up a call. There's obviously our tech's gone through some training, but just ways to better enable that individual to get the information they need, to be able to upskill and get up to speed quickly, and then make some decisions on what needs to happen. And then review kind of, even beyond that, like, how are those things assigned to the agent, both from the technician standpoint, but also on the back end a little bit. So with that being said, I'm going to switch over to my Salesforce instance and we will jump into the demo. Give me 1 second here to pull this up. Okay, great. So hopefully here in a second, you will see my screen and see our Salesforce instance. All right. So As I mentioned, our use case that we're working through here is, the technician, that's me, been assigned a work order for this mounted ball bearing that's overheating. I don't have any history or background. I actually haven't serviced this, piece of equipment before. A lot of familiar faces from a Salesforce record, fields and our activity feed and all of that here. Um, this is where we're starting. This is what we're starting with. And so we've got our agent already enabled. So, the Agentforce icon appears here. And so what we want to do is, let's start off as our technician and, get some information on our work order. So we're going to go ahead and open the Agentforce window. One of the things I like here, this is, just a small thing, is to pin the Agentforce window so that it doesn't, overlay on top of my record detail. Um, Personal preference. You may also want to, depending on how much your team is using Agentforce, change some of the column layouts of pages around. So that's something I thought about as well. You may want to move some of those over. But just an aside, I like to pin the window within Salesforce, and then we're going to ask the agent to give us some work order, information. So just kind of give me an overview of what's happening here with our work order. Um, this is all happening, and we'll look at it here in a minute on the back end with what I've enabled the agent to be able to access. So great. So here's an overview of the work order. Pretty similar to what I'm already seeing on the screen, but now it's given me some recommendations beyond just what we're seeing here. So I've got my work order information. I've got all of the detail, my case information, everything here that is going to be related to that. But what we're doing is servicing this asset today, and so I'm not as familiar with um, that happening. Also, to note, we've got our work type of bearing service. So maybe we'll start there and say, hey, I haven't serviced this bearing before or this type of equipment. So let's see if it can provide me any information on our bearing service work type. Yeah. So interestingly, here it just gave me the link, and so this is one of the things with Agentforce with AI as we get into the back end to say, previously it gave me a little more information. Here it's just say, throwing up the link. So maybe I need to work on some instructions there. But let's go ahead and get some more information on our asset. And then again, we'll look at, the back end of this as well. But let's look at the information we have for our mounted ball bearing. And so all of these, everything the agent is doing are the tasks or actions, I should say, that I've given it, the capability to do, and most importantly, have the ability to manage, based on feedback from our techs, from our users, to say, hey, I'm not really getting, all the information I need. You saw in my request here, I didn't really get much that was helpful for bearing service. So maybe I need to go back and look at how I'm, structuring, what Agentforce is responding with. But now, some information that's significantly more useful to say, okay, here is the current status of my mounted ball bearing. This is my asset. I've got a little bit of information, some purchase information, performance status is low, quite a few cases that have been opened on this, what issues have been covered. So this is a much more useful overview of the information that's being provided on, my work order to the case to the asset that I'm servicing. And it's even providing me some, key contact information, and purchase data. So let's pause here for a second and go back and go in the back end real quick and look at our agent itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with what we started with here in the front end once we get there. But this is within settings. We're in our agent builder, and we've got we're set up. We've got our topics, and so today, we're really looking at work order and case management right now, sprinkled in with some asset management too. But let's take a look at work order and case management. And if you're not as familiar, with the agent builder, I think this is, really the heart of how we structure the agent, what it can get access to, and then how it behaves in response to our questions and to our inquiries. So we've got a lot of different, information, but essentially, we're describing our topic within the agent. As you can tell, there's multiple topics that can live within an agent. We've got our scope. We give it some instructions, create new cases. We want to, detail this information, and then we can continue to add instructions. So, this is helpful. We have to deactivate and edit and then reactivate. But, this is helpful as we see performance and get information and feedback. Another useful tool here that we don't have set up around user input is phrasing and wording. So maybe the way that I requested information for my bearing service, maybe there's different ways. Knowledge articles would be one good example. People don't necessarily say knowledge articles. They say, can you show me the manual? Can you show me the guide? Like, there's different terminology and phrasing. So we can add some of that phrasing here to say, hey, here's some examples of ways people could ask this question or engage with this topic related, this agent. So again, as we're looking here in the back end, let's ask the agent the same question we asked before, and not to get into too much, technical detail, but again, very useful as you're building and training your agent and how it responds. You can kind of see the way that it's logically putting it together, as well as the steps it's taking, to get to that answer. And that's all here and going to be in our middle column here in a second as it goes through. There we go. So this is great. So now we can really see, from our work order, got a very similar response. And you will notice sometimes the order is different, right? Because it's not a bot. We're not telling it exactly what it has to do. We're giving it the framework and the actions to take, and then it's making some of those decisions, on its own. So, here we've got instructions on what's happening, actions. We won't go into a ton of detail here, but you get the idea that this is really even down into what's being generated from the output perspective. Can really get into the nitty gritty here of what's needed. And the last thing I'll show back here is just these are some of the actions. Well, most are standard actions, and this is really again the technical components that drive, but what all can we do here? So let's go back and take a look at our agent, what we're doing today. We've got our work order number. We've got some information on the asset and kind of its history there. So now I want to start to get myself together to go do work on this. And let's ask if we can create a task for our work order, so I can start to plan what I need to do in order to make this happen. Now, if I go and look at my work type here for bearing service, so I've got a task follow up and work order that was created. What I could do also is, drop in my associated equipment or even associate skills. And so that can all be pulled into, the task and information that here. And so we've got our tasks up there. Can we update the status of the work order? And so now within the agent, as I'm doing my planning, I didn't tell exactly what status to update. So of course it asks back, let's go with in progress. And so these recommendations are, generated based on those actions we've given it. I can select in progress, and now it's going to go through, update our work order related to that bearing, and I believe it'll give us confirmation based on the way those actions are set up for how we want to. There we go. Perfect. How we'd like to update the status of our work order. So we can confirm our status of in progress in the work order. Of course, you can have workflows, things that are happening in the back end, assign those tasks and to-dos in an automated fashion. A ton of information there that and automation that can happen. Agentforce can leverage flows too. So I think that's important as we look at, the types of actions that you can create here in the back end. You can get Apex flow and prompt templates. So that's definitely for another webinar, but it kind of shows you the power of what you can do, within what an agent is capable of. And what I really love, the first thing I really love is just I'm not having to click and type as much. The agent's really able to kind of help me progress through my checklist of things. Another thing I want to do is determine for this asset. Let's see, is there a warranty, on this asset? And here I said this asset versus the asset name. So let's see what Agentforce does, and if it's able to determine based on our conversation history, what's happening, and then give me the information, or if I need to, feed it a little more specifics about the asset we're talking to. So here we've got the full information. So it knew that we were talking about the mounted ball bearing, asset 02. We have our warranty status number, all this good stuff. And so that's great. And what I'd really like to do is, can draft an email to make a warranty claim. So again, these are all the things that I'm doing as a technician. I think right now that the value I'm really getting is the speed, summarization of what's happened with this asset. And here now I have subjects. I don't have that enabled right now for our demo, but we can enable Agentforce to actually send that email itself. So we can send right here from within the Agentforce interface, and really save a lot of time. So some good overviews there. Let's look at a few more things as we're working on our asset. So let's go back to the asset itself and see, what information additional information can we get, which I know we have before, but let's take a look at that. Yeah, so here's the summary view that we have from before. We have the warranty claim email. We have all of our information. Now we're ready to service and close out this asset, or sorry, close out this work order and close out the case. And again, we've got our recommended steps. We've got all of the information around what we're needed to do, and we can come in and start to then look at what's the additional information as a technician that I need for this. So maybe something as what is the estimate time to complete work on this work order. And again, just pinging, getting some information back and forth. As we I would like for you to get let's see, the timeline of activities. Let's see if we have there. So, interestingly, when I went through our first internal demo, it did give me back the specific time. So maybe again, that's something I need to tweak in my actions or call out for the agent. But these are some of the things we're learning as we go along the way. And so so here we go on our updated activities and tasks that are already assigned and related to the work order. As we get into the next level of everything here, we can start to ask for information on how to service this piece of equipment. So, is there a guide for this asset? And so this is really where we move from getting educated, getting up to speed on what's all in place today, to moving into pieces of knowledge. And so for this one, we don't have specific knowledge, but now we can create a knowledge article based on all the information we have. So those would be, really our next steps into that, and being able to create those knowledge articles. I've actually already created a few that are in draft and associated those with our mounted ball bearing. And so, we'll kind of continue in our next steps and the next series. But today, just wanted to really provide high level overview of just the initial setup for our shop floor technician, getting that basic level of information, summarizing everything there, and then reviewing some of the back end setup as well, because I think that's important to to understand at least what our agent is able to do. One common question around agents is, can the agent only do one thing? And I think, you can see with the different topics, we looked at work order and case management, but, I think for one of the even the test actions here is it's able to tell a joke, right? You're able to tell a joke, which is novel for sure. But, you're able to categorize those. So you'll have to make decisions. Do you want separate agents with, fewer tasks, fewer topics, are all combined into one agent, which is what we have here today, but the flexibility is there. And then probably the last piece, I'll touch on are the prompts. Most people are familiar with prompting, ChatGPT, prompting Gemini, prompting a lot of the tools out there. Similarly, we're going to be creating these prompts. So we have an account summary prompt for the topics and the actions, so you can associate your action with the prompt, so you're able to come in and do that. And of course, Salesforce has amazing training on this all in Trailhead. But these are some of the building blocks we have, the information that we're engaging with from a manufacturing standpoint, and yeah, that pretty much covers it for today. So pretty high level. Definitely going to continue our journey here with our technician. And appreciate everybody jumping on today. I've got a few more things to cover outside of the demo, and happy to answer any questions too. If you want to shoot me an email after today. But some of the other pieces that we're working on as we look at Agentforce, and I'm resharing my screen here for our deck, is some of the agent use cases we talked a little bit about today on our shop floor. But within Manufacturing Cloud, we have sales contracts, sales agreements. We do have the warranty piece, which we touched on lightly today, but being able to make those claims and adjust those claims. Supply chain management is a big piece of that, especially that has shop floor impacts too. And then our maintenance manager, which we touched on a little bit today as we were looking at the work order pieces. So a lot of different ways that you can leverage the Agentforce tools. And then our team specifically, we are definitely looking for projects to do, to learn. If you have ideas, we've got pilots and workshops that we're offering. So definitely reach out and get in touch if there are things that maybe this today kind of made you think about, or you were already thinking about. We'd love to sit down, discuss those. If there's opportunity even to do some face-to-face workshops, we're happy to put together content to train your team and to get up to speed. We're all learning some of this together. It's really exciting. It's not perfect, but it's very powerful. And hopefully you got something out of today. And I appreciate everyone hopping on. All right. Well, thanks everyone for the time. You can see my emails here. If there are any questions or anything, definitely follow up, and keep an eye out for the next one in our series on manufacturing and Agentforce.